There we go. So I just wanted to start with our check-in. If everyone just wants to go around, how are you doing? And just share how, maybe some feeling you have, and just how are you doing in general? And whoever would like to start.
I can start.
Okay.
Feeling very tired. Didn't sleep very well last night. There's non-stop construction outside. I mean, in Toronto, we say that there's two seasons. There's winter and there's construction season. So we are in the construction season. So if it's not the park, it's the building. If it's not the building, this is the trees. So feeling that because I'm tired, my patience is running low on the noise of a city. And so I'm feeling recentered because of the few minutes of connection and self-connection, and that made me smile because every time Edwin, I see in the mirror behind you that you never wear shoes, and I think it's really cool. And it made me smile, and if my cold wouldn't be always so cold, I would do the same thing. So it made me smile. So I'm feeling ready, curious to know what's going to happen, and playful.
Okay, well, I'll go. How do I feel? Been doing a lot of work on the curriculum. Kind of excited about that. It feels like a lot to juggle, so it feels like there's a lot of kind of pieces and a lot of people to connect with. There's a sense that there's always a meeting, and then I got to work really hard to kind of prepare for that. So it's good to have the deadlines. So it's hard, but it's good as well. I have to call about jury duty tonight, so I'm a little concerned. I don't want to go to do jury duty. I would have to go tomorrow, so I'm hoping can avoid that. My partner just had her colonoscopy Monday, so it was a big preparation for that, taking her to the facility, and so that's over. So it feels like there's kind of a relief, kind of getting ready for all that. So I'm excited, a little anxious about getting started with what we're doing. Hope that everything works well. So yeah, that's me.
So I'll go next. Talking about, is there a way to put more hours in a day? If we could, maybe that's the one question I would have wanted to ask in the arrival questions. And a sense that there isn't enough with, and I don't know. Anyway, I guess that's when you feel overwhelmed. At the same time, I have this ambivalence about, not ambivalence, but I'm toying with the concept of empathy and using empathy. I find it very easy to use when I'm putting a specific cap, like yesterday I had my meeting for my grandparents who are alienated from their grandchildren, and the feedback I get is that I embody empathy during the meeting. And yet when I am in conversation, for instance, with my son, and those conversations are very rare and take me often come out of the blue, I forget to use empathy because I seem to, the intensity, I don't know, I freeze, and when the call is over, I say, why didn't I just, because I didn't know what to say, why didn't I just do what I do so well? And I find that interesting, that even as purposeful I can be all the time, when I meet my neighbor, when I meet someone in the elevator, anytime I can be empathic, and when it's when I'm in a shaky situation, I forget. So that's my check-in for today.
Thanks.
So it's my turn. I am this morning feeling quite fearful. I have medical tests that are coming up that I am intuiting that are not going to go well, and that makes me fearful of the future, of what's going to happen next, because I'm really not feeling well. But the lovely diversion to that is that I am surprised at reading the book and going through what the exercises are and what the traits of empathy are, is that I have such a long way to go. I really, truly thought that, and this is my own, obviously my own hubris, is that I thought that I was empathetic. Apparently, there's no stamp on that. And there's so much to learn and so far to go. Just for one instance, is that agreeing with somebody, I had no idea that that was a roadblock to empathy. So it's been a nice diversion.
Okay, thanks everyone. So to the first step was to talk about your arrival question, just to go around and share those. So one of the ways I've been thinking about the project is that we have different sort of activities that are sort of like standalone activities. And the on arrival question is a standalone activity, and it has its own activity page on the website. And that already it has a whole bunch of questions that we just kind of generate more questions. And at the beginning of every meeting, you know, as people arrive, that they write in the answer to the on arrival question. And the one today was sort of this meta on arrival question, like what questions would we ask? What would be good to ask? So we can just go through, and if we each share those, I can start. The first one I had is, why are you interested in taking part in the empathy training design team? So we actually I think we did that in the first meeting, and there's a page where that question is located and everybody's answer, you know, so we can really get an overview of kind of everyone's motivation. The second question is what does a culture of empathy mean to you? Since our overall vision and intention is to build a culture of empathy and, you know, ongoingly move towards that, it would be really good to know, what do we even mean by a culture of empathy, to really hear everybody's vision of that and kind of flesh out that vision. And then the other one, the third one I came up with, is that the book has, each chapter has a different topic, you know, a different area that it's exploring, that we could ask questions that are specific to that chapter. So for the chapter 3, towards the end, he talks about the benefits of receiving empathy, being heard. as well as the benefits of giving empathy, of listening. So those were two of the questions I thought of, like specifically for the chapter, that we're working on. So in every chapter, we could come up with different questions to sort of stimulate our thinking about that chapter. So those were mine. And Rita, you're next on the list here. Oh, you're muted.
Indeed, thank you. So I lost my chat thing. Okay, hold on. So I was looking at what skills in particular people want to hone, and then from there ask if they were able to sharpen that skill, what needs of them it would serve, where do they intend to use it, and how will their life be different with these polished skills. And then a step further, see what possibility they can see in their world once they have integrated the said skills related to empathy, obviously. And the purpose was to help them clarify for themselves the practical outcome or the dream that they have, maybe just what motivates them.
Mm-hmm.
In a way, with an image that they have for the future.
Okay, great. Jessica?
Well, basically, this is what Rita says, but better. I mean, she said it better than I wrote it. It's really, I had the same approach of like, the first question is, how do you envision the training fitting your life? So it's really about the skills as well, and how really I was positioning myself as like people asking themselves, so what's in it for me? So really trying to think a bit why they're taking this course for themselves, and how often, when we go to workshops and we are super excited to learn tons of stuff, and then we leave the workshop and then we never touch the the materials we receive. We don't throw them away, so we have a pile, but we never really look at them, right? I'm sure everybody does that. And so it's and so I'm thinking, what about it? And thinking actually, how would you like to use the material right away in your life? And if you think about it, maybe you would enter the curriculum with some clarity and a better sense of not letting the materials getting dusty. Same thing, what are your objectives for the curriculum? Like what what are the goals? Under this question, I had more question like, how will you track your progress? I am awful at tracking stuff, but I can see the value of like, how would I know I'm getting better at it? Because it's it's a long-term thing, and sometimes we can get discouraged. So it might be helpful for people to have a clear sense of how would I see anything change? Like, what kind of exactly 3 little goals I can see once I reach that, and then so that you can see the progress. And the third is the same as Rita, like, what would you like to have learned at the end? Like, what skills would you like to improve? So again, for them to be like, what's gonna make my life, how it's gonna make my life better, and what is it mostly my relationship with my sister? Is it for work? Like, what's the frame of how I enter this curriculum?
Good. Okay. Bunny?
I didn't answer the question correctly, so I'd rather not go over my answers. They weren't, I didn't create any questions. I tried to answer.
Uh-huh.
So I'll just, I'll try and understand better next time.
Okay, so what I did want to get a little feedback on this is an activity. What do you think about this as an activity? Just sort of kind of a popcorn. What in the sense, Bunny, it seemed like it wasn't clear. So is there something you could have done to make it clearer, or?
I think a little more explanation of what you were looking for, maybe. I thought we were to answer the questions. Maybe as an activity, it came last minute, so it was, for me, we didn't do this last week, so I didn't know it was a weekly thing. I would have attended earlier so I could have taken more time. I thought I was rushed, so I was just trying to get it done.
Can I say something?
Yeah, just jump in. I'll take some notes.
Edwin, do you mind if I take notes as well? Like, I'm usually good at it. So if you want me to jump in at the same time, is that okay? Or
yeah, it's good. This is a shared Google Doc, so it's great if everybody takes notes together. So just go ahead. That's great.
Okay.
Yeah,
so,
Rita.
The way I was looking at it, I'm reading what Bunny you were saying, and you took Edwin's question of why to create a culture of empathy, and then you gave some reasons, and somehow I think it's a useful way of engaging the process that Edwin suggested we do, and to me it still meets the needs of what I think of what Edwin was looking for, and I'm wondering about that.
Yeah, I see that as well, that one of the big questions is, how do we create a culture? Why do we create it? How and why do we create a culture of empathy? And this year's were kind of like questions towards that question, like how do we kind of flesh that out? So that can actually go into, be part of that question to kind of build on it. So yeah, so I think it's very constructive.
Okay.
More ideas. I kind of excited about the idea about it. The question is that I find that, as I mentioned before, that when people arrive, some people arrive like 5 minutes early, and then sometimes people arrive a little bit late. So it kind of is something that can kind of fill that time too, kind of keeps people, kind of working on something. So it feels like a productive use of time for the questions. And it also kind of starts surfacing different ideas and, getting them written down in writing. So, so I kind of like the idea, so I'm just wondering how people are in terms of, does it seem like a fun thing, or, like a chore, or, what?
Usually this kind of question, I do roll my eyes, but I also do recognize that it is helpful to, like you said, writing down. I do think not necessarily as a filter, but as a way to kind of settling in, as a way to kind of like, I like what you said, Win, that it's a good space, good activity, a good in-between activity while people are arriving, while, at the same time, I'm wondering if it might be what's happening. Like if you arrive late, you see people doing stuff, you're like, oh my gosh, like what is it? What's that? And I'm not clear if this is something that on arrival question, like for every time.
Yeah, it was for every meeting. That the very first meeting we actually did it. But then since we went into just general brainstorming for the last meeting, I didn't, introduce it. So that's why it was not consistent. But the first meeting, we did do it. And in the other groups, we've been doing it in every meeting. So then it becomes just sort of a habit, that it's just something we're going to be doing.
Yeah, or we all have a common activity to do when we arrived. And
Yeah.
are the questions always going to be the same, or you change questions every time?
Every question, every time is a different question. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I like to. I'm okay with continuing to that weekly.
Okay.
I find it engaging. It gets everybody on the same page and helps us focus. I found the questions very big, however. Yeah, that it takes some thought for some of those questions, and to create more questions out of questions is not an exercise I've done usually. So as a meta question, I think there's I would have liked them maybe in advance.
Send them in advance.
Yeah, maybe to consider what a big question looks like and feels like, and how would I answer that? Should I be asked that question? So maybe a specific question is different, but big questions like that to me may have been more easily approached if I were given some time to consider.
So send like how much in advance? Like, do you think?
An hour.
Okay.
Yeah, nothing, not too much. I don't need a whole lot of time, but to get us into the thought process of the meeting coming up, that would be helpful.
Okay.
Or an hour before, maybe even like, as it's going to be a recurrent thing, like at the end of the previous meeting, thinking of one. I would say maybe just two is enough, and maybe one that's a bit bigger, and one that I really like, Edwin, your question about the paragraph of the book, like one kind of bigger question about more maybe not as big. I think I joined Bunny on that. And then another one's really specific to what we're gonna learn today. That I really like that, so that we can and then enter in the learning.
Okay, so I'm hearing kind of like two questions, send them in advance, or even at the end of the meeting, we set it like, and one of the questions is sort of a bigger general question, and then the other one is specific to the chapter we're going to be reading.
Yeah, and somehow it reminds me, I was taking a 10-week session on mindfulness meditation, something like that. When we used to receive a question when we arrived for the same purpose, to engage us as everyone was settling in. The questions seemed more about bringing us in the moment, more a little bit as an internal check-in before the group check-in. Because somehow it gets us those questions, when they are useful, they bring us outside.
Right.
When the purpose may be to help us concentrate, I don't know.
Yeah, so different questions are going to have different effects, and if we want something that brings us into the moment, possibly more of how we're feeling in the moment and kind of connecting versus kind of the broader.
And that's why I really like questions related to the chapter that we're going to engage into, because that helps us put it in writing.
Yeah.
Clarify how to express it.
Okay, great. Well, that was sort of a feedback. That was there's one kind of structure I was looking at is that, you know, everybody can create a little activity. Like I have a couple other ones I want to try, you know, maybe like next week. And you have an activity, you write it up, you can present it. And then after you present it, we get a little bit of feedback, like right now. And then that kind of goes into creating the activity. So we have a toolkit right now that's kind of forming, and that, you know, all this is going to go into the activity for on arrival question. You know, kind of keep getting kind of fleshed out. And if you have an activity, like I have one that I like to do next week, which is intention setting, and also mirrored feelings is a second one. So you can come up with your own activity, you know, 10-minute, 15-minute activity, and present it, and then we kind of go through that process. So you can think about that over the week. How does that sound?
I'm not sure of the timeline on that. Can you explain that?
Yeah, we would implement, like at each meeting, we'd maybe put in one activity or two activities. So we'd kind of have to create an outline of when we do the activity. So over the next, and there's also a question of, like, this is our third meeting, you know, do we want to extend it? Our other group has added 6 more meetings, so we're doing like 12 right now. So the book is 16 chapters. You know, so I don't know, how is everybody in terms of extending too? Because we're into the 3rd meeting. So
I think I have it on my calendar until July. I just put forever. And,
okay, great.
In July, because I'm going on one vacation in July, August. So it's all the way to July for me. So I'm good to go more.
Oh, good. So I'm kind of putting it into infinity too. I see it as an ongoing, you know, keep kind of, you know, bringing people together and just an ongoing development. We're at the very beginning. This is our first little prototypes here, and I think it's just going to keep evolving. So just wondering, Rita and Bunny, how?
For me, it will depend on my health,
Okay.
my doctor's appointments.
Sure. And Rita?
I'm good to go.
Oh, good to go. All right, so that was our number 3 on the agenda. We did the exercise, we got the feedback. And then it's reviewing the meeting outline. So what was sort of, I wasn't like totally clear on what the agenda was that everyone sort of agreed on. Was it that we talked about our personal we did just kind of a check-in, and then we go into empathic listening around the chapter? Is that how it was? That worked for everybody? Was that Jessica? Was that?
I was thinking that it's something we can design, depending on what the need are, like, because the second step, after sharing after doing empathic listening, we would dive in. From my understanding was we will dive in the chapters. So maybe the part of which gonna do empathic listening in like empathy circle might be either personal or based on the chapter. That's what I'm offering.
Okay, so it could be the empathic listening. We would do that for maybe like an hour and do it either personal or on the chapter. Does that work? Okay, yeah. That sounds good then. So what we can step into that to do as a sort of an introduction, I had created a Google Doc. So every chapter, I've created sort of a summary in a Google Doc that we can share to just kind of refresh everyone's on that. So I'm going to put this up and just share it to just refresh, and then we can go into the empathic listening. So this Okay, so it's not coming up.
Yeah.
Listening well, the art of understanding. So we were looking, this is meeting 3. We're looking at chapter 3 and 4. And something we've done with something we found with the team 1 is that, each chapter has a different concept, and we're actually changing to only do one chapter at a time and do a deep dive into one concept. So, we can kind of look at that. We can try 3 and 4 and then see if we want to kind of group chapters together or just do a deep dive into one chapter. So anyway, the chapter 3 is called How Accurate Empathy Works. Starts with a quote, most people do not listen with the intent to understand, they listen with the intent to reply. The main parts of this chapter seem to be the Thomas Gordon model of how the communication works, accurate empathy works, in terms of someone has meaning, they speak the words are heard, and then the meaning is kind of gathered, and that at points 1, 2, and 3 is where errors can happen. And I kind of made my own little model here, which I'd like to kind of expand on over time, with kind of a little bit more dramatic. And so I kind of see this as a sort of a model to kind of build on for the future too, kind of on how the communication, creating a visual model. In chapter 3, he ends with benefits of being listened to for the speaker. Of being listened, I didn't write that very well. Benefits of, I'm not sure, a feeling of mattering, a feeling of understood. So the benefits for the listener. So, and then, what experiences
for the speaker.
Let me see. That is not, what are the benefits for listener? First, I don't know, benefits of listened, I don't know what happened there. Benefits, let me just say.
Of being heard.
Of being heard, yeah. Being heard. Of being heard, okay. Benefits of listening to others, yes, that was that one, okay. And then what are the benefits of listening to others for the listener? Heads off misunderstandings, deepens relationship. Over time, the listener grows emotionally, can see the interconnectedness of life. Chapter 4, it says, what most people really need is a good listening to. Empathy is not just a skill or technique, it is a mindset. So it's really that difference between a skill and a technique versus a way of being, really, a mindset. And assumptions behind empathic listening is it's valuable, creates better communication, be willing not to be the center of attention, and differences are valuable. So that was the overall summary. And with that, just as an introduction, we can start with our empathic listening for about 45 minutes. And so the first person would like to start, select who you'd like to speak to, and you can talk about anything personal or about what you read in the chapters. And so the first person, just select who you want to speak to, and we're ready to go.
Where are those notes, Edwin? I'd like to be able to put them up and refer to them.
Okay, you can I'm putting them into the chat window that,
Okay, thank you.
so it sounds like you're starting to speak. So what I was hearing, you were wondering like, where are the notes?
Yes.
Is there more?
Where are they? Says I need permission.
Oh, okay. Then I will give you permissions. Can edit.
Okay, thank you. And I'm able to scroll. Okay, thank you.
So would you like to continue? And I'll just reflect.
I think that I'm struggling a bit with, well, first of all, do I have to say who I'm speaking to?
Yeah, that would be the first step.
Okay. Rita, if you would allow me to offer you my challenges with what I'm reading in the text about empathy. The difference between empathy being a skill or a technique and a mindset or a heart set. I'm not really clear on the distinction because the exercises that I've read give you clear, visible, for me, skill development and how to respond, how to view or transfer from a question to a statement. That's a skill, in my opinion. So I'm wondering if you could, well, I'm just saying I'm not going to ask a question. I'm going to just make the statement that I'm struggling with the difference between the skill or technique and the mindset and heart set.
Yes, so Bernie, you're reading techniques in the book about how to practically do this empathy thing, and at the same time the message is saying it's not about technique, it's about how you show up, it's about how your mindset, your heart, that you're bringing in, and for some reason you see it, you don't understand. This distinction doesn't seem to make sense.
That's correct. Thank you.
Is there more?
I think exactly. I don't understand. I maybe I'm struggling with the lack of attention to intention in the book. Is intention part of, I'm struggling with that. Is intention part of the mindset, heart set? I would imagine it is, but I see this more as skill building and a technique. Once the intention's there, I think it's all about skill and technique.
So it seems that you start with the intention and you grasp the skills and the guidelines in order to make it happen.
Mm-hmm. It's not clear to me.
So it's still not clear how to differentiate them.
Yes, thank you. May I just say to Rita, just one last thing, maybe we don't need to differentiate them, maybe it's both. Maybe it's both a mindset, heart set, and a technique, a skill development. Maybe it's both. I don't think it's either or.
So one way to approach it in order to make sense for it is to bring them into the same package, the intention and the skills.
Thank you, yes. That's how I'm feeling right now.
So now it makes kind of sense.
A little bit.
A tiny bit.
So if you're ready to pass it on to Rita, you can just say, I feel fully heard. Or...
I feel fully heard. Thank you, Rita.
Thank you for engaging. Yeah, talking about that. I think it was in this.
Who are you speaking to?
Jessica,
All right.
if you want.
Absolutely.
I had taken notes, and I think it was in that third chapter about the accuracy in the empathy work. He was saying it's about getting what the person is thinking, feeling, experiencing, and meaning. So I loved this example that it took about the spouse that comes home and ready to go back to work, and I thought it was pretty concrete and sharp, and with that it was helping us with the technicality in fact. And what I liked about what he also said was that he said accurate empathy is a skill that counselors learn, and because it helps the listener, the person listen to get what they are saying. So it's somehow we were in your example, in Edwin's example, it says the advantage of being listened to is to matter, and somehow all of a sudden I matter myself because someone's listening to me. Yeah, it's enough for now.
Yeah.
I'm sure that I know what I was saying.
What I heard, Rita, is that you really liked that chapter and the 4 squares, and it sounds like you really maybe not quite a aha moment, but really like it gave you a lot of clarity, and you really liked the example. That was probably spot on, to be able to understand all the steps. Like really, you're saying like the technicality of like empathy, like it really got disconstructed, and it made sense for you, and you were really integrating that and exploring that, and I'm hearing as well the other part was we feel that we matter when we are being heard. I feel I'm missing something. What else was there as well, Rita?
I guess all of a sudden we appreciate ourselves more, maybe, when someone finds us important enough to help us clarify what we are saying and trying to find it valuable to want to make sure they got exactly what I want to say.
Oh, so you really acknowledging the quality of, wow, being seen and being heard is a quality that's super important to you.
I think we don't have that in our fast-paced life. So it's a way of, let's just sit down and be with each other.
Yeah. It's like it was the fact that it's written there and then you read it. It's like not a reminder, but like a, oh yes, like a big yes. We really need that. Like you really feel connected with what you're reading and what it's saying, and you recognize how it's needed and how it's powerful when it's happening for people, and you're happy maybe that it's existing. Anything else?
No, I think it's thank you. Thank you for clarifying what I am saying.
My pleasure. Edwin?
Yep.
What do I want to say? First of all, can I make a request, like just in general in the group, like if I, for my personal development, if I'm not good at, if I'm not reflecting empathically or not doing a good empathy listening, I want to be told. And I'm really open, like I'm okay to be told, like that wasn't really great. So I just want to say that.
Okay, so I'm hearing that you'd like to put out to the group that you would like feedback if you're not hearing people well, that you want to grow and get better at it, and you would appreciate any kind of feedback, so that hey, you didn't listen so well here, and that you would take that as a way of growing.
Yeah, that'd be great. So
and have real gratitude for it. You'd actually feel gratitude if people shared that.
Yes. Absolutely. So this is something I wanted to design, and I wanted to talk something about more personal. How can I not spend an hour talking? I'm in a bit of a big transition right now, and suddenly I'm being part of this amazing project. I might join another project with someone, another person I really admire, and I am working right now with Rita, which is another person I really admire as well, and I'm so grateful she's my mentor, and we work together. Like I have a momentum. Like I found a part-time job that hasn't started yet, but it seems that I'm in momentum, and it's actually it's easier for me to be in a poopy stage and be me and feeling like the victim than being in the wow, things are happening, and staying in the joy and the celebration. And I'm really struggling with that, and so that's why I thought it would be a good place.
Okay, so you're wanting to just share how it is that you're feeling that there's projects you're working on, as well as you're working with Rita, you're working with this, you're working with others, and you just got a part-time job, and there's a sense of sort of a momentum that's happening, and you're noticing that instead of just appreciating the momentum of what's happening, you're sort of feeling maybe a little sorry for yourself, or like it's me, and just kind of the struggles that you're having.
No, I'm not feeling sorry for myself.
Okay.
it's when things go wrong that I'm feeling more comfortable and feeling sorry for myself. But what's happening now is that I'm freaking out. I'm like, oh my God, all those things are so great. I don't know what to do with it.
Oh, okay.
I don't know how to be happy. And what I do is instead I go eat ice cream and procrastinate because it's too scary to have expectation from people, to think, wow, I need to show up, and I'm scared of being seen. Ironically, like, I'm really, really scared.
Okay, so you're really feeling afraid of being seen, of sort of like showing up, and just feeling a sense of fear about being seen, and
fear and a sense of terror.
It's
very,
not just fear. Yeah, it's terror. Yeah, it's deep.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah.
Is there more?
Probably, but I'm going to stop here because
it's like good time to stop. There's probably a lot more, but good time to stop.
Yeah. Thank you, Edwin.
Okay, great. And then I guess I'll speak to Bunny. It's what's coming up. The getting sort of talking about the book and this whole thing about technique and sort of mindset is, and that differentiation. I think that's that you address. So that's kind of just thinking about that, and something that came up about is Carl Rogers, who did a lot of this empathic listening. He talked about being sort of demeaned as what he was doing was a technique. This empathic listening is a technique, and then you kind of just say, it's just a technique, you just do this, and it kind of dismisses. You get kind of dismissed by saying it's a technique. And he said he was actually criticized that it's just a technique, and he kind of got intimidated by that. So it's just that relationship of mindset and technique or skill is there's something to kind of explore there.
Edwin, it sounds to me as if you've been doing this work a long time, and you're seeing a bit of an evolution in through Carl Rogers in the placing out into the world the notion of empathetic listening as a skill, and that resulted in a negative response. Actually, I heard the word demeaning and criticized from you, that Carl Rogers had to endure that. And I hear you pondering that notion of what to do with that disparity between the idea of mindset and technique.
Yeah, and something that comes up is like with the NVC community, they have a very structured sort of technique.
Right.
And when people first start using it, they sound horrible. It's like, it's very stiff. It's like annoying. It's like, and people just object to it, and they get all this negative feedback. So I guess I see it a little bit like, when we first learned to ride a bike, we're wobbly, we're, maybe falling over, so there's something about that there's technique, and then it kind of gets kind of embodied somehow. So you just kind of do it sort of naturally with a natural flow.
So I'm hearing that with the comparison with NVC as a very structured, rigid process, is that I believe I'm hearing that you're hoping to get away from that isn't something that you would like this to become, this empathy, understanding of empathy, is you don't want it to be a rigid strict process? Am I-
That's not quite it. It's what I'm kind of, I guess what I, as I think of it now is I see it more as having, if it sounds stiff and all that, to have understanding that people are just learning or just beginning. So having a sense of care and understanding and not, yeah, so it's more that aspect. When people are first learning some of these skills like reflective listening, it can be a little stiff and awkward, and just have, you know, understanding and care and say, this is just learning, so it don't, you know, don't sweat it, you know, I guess.
This is what your intention is, if I'm understanding you correctly, is that you are hoping that however this evolves, is that there be care and a respect for the newness of the
Right.
person.
Yeah.
Would that be correct?
Yeah, that's it. So yeah, but this whole chapter, that does seem to be a core between technique, and there's sort of the sense of a mindset. Sort of, I don't know. It's like being able to articulate what a way of being, like empathy is a way of being.
Right.
Is just that there's a feeling and a sensitivity, and you know, a technique is something that feels a little bit stiffer and more structured and doesn't have that. So there's a difference of the felt experience between maybe it, but yeah. So anyway, it's just something I'm exploring. I don't have like a total, you know, total clarity about it. But I think it's a good thing to even think about.
So you're respecting the need to consider all aspects of the difference between intention and meaning, with technique being stiff and rigid, and that you're continuing to explore that and consider that.
Yeah, and that the way of being is more, it seems to be more of a deeply felt, more of a felt experience. It's being really attuned to the felt experience. So when we talk about empathy, there's the sensitivity to the felt experience. So it seems to be, that seems to be, in terms of a way of being, like a real touchstone, is that sensitivity to the felt experience.
And that's what I'm hearing you acknowledge now, is that it's beyond a technique and a skill, is this is an actual way of being and intending to be.
Yeah, I feel heard. Thank you.
You're welcome. Do I go again?
Yeah, we just go a couple of rounds, several rounds.
Jessica, if I may.
Please.
I'm trying to consider what I'm saying. I think I want to expand on that notion of a way of being that Edwin has spoken about and that you read about in the book. It's heartness. Is that the word they used?
Heart set.
Pardon?
Heart set.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Heart set.
Yes. That to me is about, that's a choice. I think that, and I speak a lot about the choices we make, even in the words that we use. Each word that we use is a choice that we have. And I believe that this heartness comes from intention. Clearly, it comes from intention and cannot be compared to a way of being that Edwin was talking about, is the complete opposite of skill and technique. It's a learning process. It's still a choice that you make to engage in that learning process, but a way of being is a bigger choice. It's something to me that needs to be considered and actually become a part of who you are. The skill and technique is something you utilize. It's not something that is you, actually. So I see quite a disparity between the two.
Mm-hmm. So it sounds like now you came to a place of like, oh, it's not either or. It's like this this sense that this hurtness that you're talking about is like a way of being, and the intention and the choice we want to make, and how do we approach the world using the technique, but the technique is just integrated in part of who we want to be, and then we're using that kind of technique and with the intention and the clear choice of like who we want to be, how we want to interact in the world. And so it's like you're having a bit of more realization and clarity around how how it does make sense to you, this notion of skill and heart and way of being.
Yes. And just to clarify that, I believe there's a great distinction between skill and technique and a choice of being, how you are, who you are as a person.
And a choice of being. So it's like, yeah, you really want to make, there's a clear cut between those two.
There is for me.
Yeah,
Yes.
there is for you, yeah. Okay. And it helps you to clarify how to interpret that for your own mindset, I was going to say, understanding and your own way of how you want to practice that later on, maybe with the book.
Thank you, Jessica. Feel heard.
Yeah. All right. Rita?
For sure.
Okay. The book. There was it's interesting that I realized that chapter 4, I read it very, very fast, and so far it's the only chapter I haven't like underlined, like not use my little pretty color and make some like notes. And I was wondering why. And I really like that Edwin took out stuff from the book, because there's some things I had not, for some reason, I had not seen in chapter 4 about the is it 3rd or 4 mindset? And I don't know, I was just noticing that and how I was approaching that. My realization is that I think I fell into the trap, as like he said at the beginning, that we think we're a good listener. And I think I was kind of like, I know that thing and I don't need to know. And now I'm realizing that's me falling into the trap of assuming that what I do is good enough and I don't need to. It's particularly, I don't know why, in this chapter, like the attitude of empathic understanding, I was like, I got it. And so I felt a bit it's putting me in my place a little bit today. She'd be like, oops. I think I know, but really I don't.
Mm-hmm. Can I just say I felt the same way, Jessica?
So you basically read really fast this chapter 4, and you thought, yeah, I know what I'm talking about, what he's talking about. I don't really need to dive into it. You didn't even highlight anything with your pink eyeliner, and yet you appreciated seeing Edwin's summary of it.
Yeah.
Having said that, it kind of made that, wow, maybe I fell into a trap of what Miller is talking about, that we think we know that stuff, and we believe we don't need to learn that, and I've got it, and somehow you didn't engage really in the concept.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good way of saying that I didn't engage with the concept with that particular like, and seeing it's just 2 page, super short. For some reason, I dismiss it because I'm always super short, so I'm going to read it super fast. And so I did read it super fast. So I was having this accumulation of assumptions, and which bring me to think how I'm thinking of the whole curriculum now, that, and hearing Bunny saying as well, she had the same kind of reaction, that maybe there's something we can use that as maybe having reminders, at the beginning of each session, or in between, or after 2 or 3 chapters, like having a reminder of coming here as a beginner, like I'm coming here with new eyes. Like when I did my coaching training in the first class, this is what they're saying, like everything you've learned is great, but we really want you to come here with like the assumption that you're really here to learn something new, and not that you're here to learn something new, but that come with fresh eyes, come with pure curiosity, and trying to move away from I know that thing. And so for me it was I'm wondering how I can use my own I was going to say silliness, not silliness, just roadblock maybe, or challenge, or realization, to make it as a structural thing for the curriculum.
Wow, you went through a lot, so I'm not sure I can bring it all, because it was intense.
I'm expecting exact words, Rita.
So this chapter is it was reassuring for you to know that I think that Bunny had felt the same way about it, and you somehow are toying with the concept, and somehow it brings you back to when you took the coaching course, and it's reminding you to let go of so try to come in with this curious open mind to be able to integrate what is offered there, and I think you're saying that you're hoping to be able to just do that, and connect with what is there in the moment, and approach it without any prejudgment.
Yeah, really coming in with fresh curiosity, and the part that I was extending into was also, what about using that my mistake as a something to think about for the curriculum, for people to be told that, to be you're gonna think that it's maybe easy, or like exactly what he said the first chapter, like really maybe emphasizing it a little bit more on the more not just at the beginning, maybe having some refresher of like, you think but you like, you still need to practice, and you need to come here with like fresh sets of eyes.
So you wanna use that experience that you just had with this chapter 4, and bring it back into the curriculum for that, so that when you when people are engaging in the course, you want to remind yourself and themselves that Yeah, we think it's so simple and we don't need to really learn that stuff, and yet it's so much more complex, and until we practice it mindfully, we need to do that in order to integrate the complexity.
Yeah, exactly. And the last thing is, when you were saying about complexity, I thought it was kind of like, I mean, as English being my second language, I thought it as a language again, as I I consider my English pretty good, but I really know that I'm at this level where there's a lot of subtleties, a lot of little things in the language that I'm not getting. You know, there's a lot of like layers that I'm that I'm not getting, I think. And I think this is a bit the same thing with empathy. Like it seems like this big, easy, like you see the iceberg, and like it's like, okay, I got it. But then as the more you do it, the more you're gonna be able to savor, like you're gonna taste more and more layers, and I don't know if this is more complex, but there's, I don't know, there's gonna be something different. I don't know how to explain it, but giving the example of a language.
So starting from your language experience of not always feeling the nuances and being able to really point to them or grasp them, you bringing that kind of metaphor into the book, and the, if not the complexity, maybe the depth
Depth. Yep.
of
Yeah.
the concept seems so simple when we read them, and yet when you peel them away, there is so much more than first appears. So you want to sit down and engage into that.
Oui.
And inspire others who come to the training
As well, yeah.
with that
Yeah.
same mindset.
Yeah. Perfect. Thank you, Rita. I feel heard.
I forget. Oh, Edwin.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. I forget how he says that. Marshall Rosenberg says that if all we're doing is following the guidelines or the technique, we are disconnected, in fact, to the person we want to connect with. So he's saying that the technique is really the theory. That's my interpretation, that the technique is really the theory, and yet when you are in front of a person and you have the intention of being empathic, if you hang on to the technique, you're going to lose that connection. And I guess it's finding this balance, and that it reminded me when you said earlier, Edwin, you said when people start NVC, they sound so robotic, and it's really painful to hear them reflect what people say. And I remember experiencing that painfulness, that pain in when I was using, okay, you're feeling that because you have a need of that, and when you express that, it doesn't even, you can't even connect with your own words. So it's almost a journey, I think, from the theory until you can leave the theory and back to this bicycle, not thinking about what you're doing, but just enjoying, feeling the the wind on your face, and not having to worry about balancing because you are balanced,
Mm-hmm.
and enjoying the ride. Yeah.
Okay, so you're going back to the sort of skill, learning the skill, and sort of the way of being, and having the metaphor of the you were seeing of the bicycle that you can you can just kind of integrate how to ride a bicycle, so it's just sort of a natural experience. And you've also had the experience within NBC about the awkwardness and the of people starting with for example that process. So you're just seeing the kind of moving from that skill base to just kind of integrating it into your way of being is kind of what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
May I add something that I heard, Rita? May I do that, Edwin?
Well, if you want, sure, give it a shot.
I heard you. What made an impact on me was that I heard you say there can be a disconnect between technique and your connection to the person. Did you hear that, Edwin? Is that
there can be it's Rita. She feels heard by it.
Yeah. Rita, is that? May I ask something about that? I heard you say that is what I'm saying. I'll just make the statement that I heard you say that there's a disconnect between the use of a technique or a skill and the actual connection to the person.
I think I was referring to what Marshall Rosenberg says about technique, and he's saying that if we hang on too much to the technique, then we connecting with the technique, we're not connecting with the person in front of us.
So you're referencing what you heard Marshall Rosenberg say, that if you have a technique and you really hold on tight to that technique, that you're really connecting with the technique and not the person you're trying to connect with. So it's not to hold on so tightly to the technique, but rather to try to maybe connect with the person.
Yeah, yes, and I think the leap is, that's now my take on it, is that only once you are comfortable with that technique can you really apply it while you connect with the other person, because you're not thinking about the technique, it just becomes natural. And I think that comes back to your intention. Your intention, I really want to connect, what's in his heart, what is she thinking, what is it, and that comes back to what Miller says about accurate empathy. Is about, where does he say that, connecting with what the person is thinking, feeling, experiencing, and what they really mean. Yes, those four verbs: feeling, experiencing, and meaning. So if you englobe all that, you are really connecting with the experience in the moment.
So what I'm hearing is that it's kind of the foundation is the intention. Is like, what is your intention with the other person? Is it to really connect? Is that what, and so really to be aware of that intention.
Yeah.
Or to even have the intention. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm complete. Thank you.
Okay. Then I'll speak to Jessica. Wait. That's cute. So yeah, the whole intention is a big piece. I see that as well. So I've thought a lot about intention, that, what is our intention? And I've been seeing that within the curriculum or the MOOC is to get clear on the intention. For me, the intention is to build a culture of empathy. Is sort of like the biggest intention. And so I'll just start with that.
So for you, intention is a big deal, and you've been reflecting on that, and you are clear on your own intention about creating a culture of empathy, and so it sounds like you want other people to be clear as well on their intention, and it sounds like intention is central in to be able to do empathy and empathic listening and connect.
Yeah, I think it's helpful for the curriculum, for the training, to be really clear on the intention. Like one of the problems I have with NVC, the intention seems to be getting your needs met, right? So there's this focus on the intention of somehow you've got these needs and they got to get met. And it's like this unending getting your needs met. And which is, that seems to be part of it. But the other part for me is the awareness of the whole society, that there's this awareness of the whole culture, the whole society, and that there's really sort of this need for, or what is the feeling, what is the quality of the culture we want to create? And for me, it's an empathic culture, right? It's the intention of the whole society of being empathic. So, and trying to articulate, that is kind of what a big piece of, I think, we need to do.
So you want people taking the MOOC being clear on what the MOOC's intention is, and it sounds like you have this dream, this desire of an intentional society. Like you were comparing NVC a bit with NVC is really about unmet needs and meeting your own needs, and then you would like to extend that.
Right.
Yeah, okay, but what is the intention for everybody else?
Yeah, it's so having that, a lot of times people pull back from politics, saying, oh, it's just greedy, self-centered. And it's like, no, we need to change the whole political system so that it supports empathy, that it's, and kind of be activist about that. Like, yeah, we need to change this, and this is how we go about doing it. And that the curriculum is geared towards that whole cultural shift versus just an individualistic sort of getting your own problems or needs met. That's part of it. That's a piece of it. Getting everyone's needs that they feel heard, seen, and addressed. But also, there's sort of like this sense of the whole system, the whole community that needs, that would just be things would just work better, more well-being if we had empathy as a core value.
So there's a huge shift in society that you would like to see. You're thinking that empathy. I had this picture of drops of empathy. Almost is not enough. It's the whole soil that you want to change. It's the foundation of how human beings interact, that we can actually create a shift in. And you gave the example of the political way of doing things, and doing business as usual is not going to allow the intention of empathy to really flourish. You really want to change the root of things, this for the whole society to intentionally be aware of how we want to do things now.
Yeah.
Maybe there's another thing.
Mm-hmm. So talking about the soil, it's more the whole ecology, right? The whole ecological system. There's all these components, there's all this dog eat dog, right? The ecology. How do we transform the whole ecology so that it's more about listening and sensitivity, constructive dialogue, shared action, collaboration, power with, so really a whole kind of a cultural shift, but to have that is also the an intent, larger intention, and how do we kind of move towards that intention?
The intention. I hear interconnectedness is really like what you would like to see more, so that we can have a real shift and actually change the game.
Exactly. Yeah. And maybe even integration. There's a quality of integration that happens, which is kind of what I see is like we do with the empathy circle, right? It's long, it takes time, but there's this slow sort of integration of our spirit, of our ideas, of our feelings that kind of happen.
Yeah, it's like you really. But to go back to what like we heard before, like it's breathing and feeling and like our hearts beating empathic, empathically, like really. It sounds like every things in the world that are connected, everything that's connected is gearing towards the intention of empathy.
Mm-hmm. Of a culture of empathy. Yeah.
Of a culture of empathy. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel heard.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. Oh, it's me to choose.
Oh,
I'm
maybe this will be the last one.
Yeah. Or maybe I'm okay to stop now if you want to stop.
I think we have time for like one more.
Okay. You sure I can go? Well, Bunny?
Yes, Jessica.
What do I want to say? I need to figure out something actually. Processing everything I've heard, and I'm feeling hopeful. About what's happening, and also overwhelmed. Because to John, what Edwin was saying, it's I do see that as well. I do see like it's a change in culturally. There's something that needs to happen, which takes every individual to do it. And I just had a thought of like, how can I, in this idea of really breathing and living and feeling, like balancing the moments where we are not, the moments where we are actually human, and when we fail. That just suddenly popped up in my head. That's something I need to often to be reassured about, that especially when you try a new technique or when you try something new, like it's really safe and okay to, if I may say, fuck it up nonstop, and then eventually it come. Finding kind of like the comfort of sometimes I'm failing beautifully, just not. And to John, what Rita was saying as well, like especially when it's like, oh, my sister, gee, like everything I've learned. Oh, I've lost Bunny, I think.
Okay, well, I'll reflect and she'll pop in. Right. So what I'm hearing is you're looking at the notion of failure, and how do we balance that failure, that there's so find comfort in failing beautifully. So kind of like celebrating your failure, almost enjoying the failure and seeing the beauty in the failure.
Yeah, and to be okay that, yeah, I want to create also a culture shift. Like I really do believe that there is, or there are other ways that the world can be, and but it's okay if I'm not always reflecting that in my personal life. It's okay if sometimes I don't want to get up and stay in bed and eat ice cream and procrastinate. Like I like finding not feeling guilty, because we're such in a culture of like guilt and shame that it's really easy to get into that mindset. And so in doing this whole heavy, it's heavy, you know, like wanting to change the world, wanting to change a culture, like having a culture shift, like wow. And
So
so
why
yes,
not go?
to accept our humanness and to be okay sometimes to be like, I'm not going to do that today.
Uh-huh.
I'm sorry, I'm not going to give money today to this homeless guy. I'm you know, like it's to be okay sometimes to not doing it. I don't know. Sometimes I'm saying that because I struggle with that too. Or does it mean that, especially if I want to teach those things, but what does that make me if sometimes I fail and someone is actually pointing the finger at me and say, "Oh, I saw you the other day and you didn't do that." Ugh.
Oh, yeah. So you've got this intention of sort of making a culture of empathy, but you're going to fail at it, or sometime you just, you got to take care of yourself, and you're concerned about people like pointing the finger at you and judging you that, hey, you're not doing this, and, you should be guilty or whatever.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
kind of you feel this guilt, and it sounds like you just don't want to be doing it out of guilt and have more space and care for yourself too.
Yeah, exactly. I really value authenticity. So if someone points out to me that I'm not being authentic, it really hurts. And I haven't found yet this place of, I'm practicing self-compassion, but it's still something, it's really challenging. It's weirdly challenging to be okay, to be able to be like, oh, that's okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's challenging to let go and, and say, oh, you didn't succeed in what you were wanting to do, kind of be, empathic or caring and so forth. And it's okay. And not have that sense of self-judgment and self-criticism. And especially since you value authenticity, if somebody's criticizing your authenticity, it's okay to to have, it's to be, I guess it was like, I don't know quite what that was, like if somebody's criticizing your authenticity to, be okay with that or something.
To remind myself that I'm just human.
Oh, yeah, that you're just human. You're just doing, what you can.
What I can, yeah. Thank you, I feel heard.
Okay, great. So, we've got about 15 minutes. So, had some questions here. Is I did the chapter summary, and I just wanted to get some feedback on that. How was that? Was that helpful? Is there anything we could do? Because I see the chapter summary as sort of an activity. I did the Google slide.
Oh.
That's sort of like an activity that is a little piece, and just wanted to get some feedback on that. Was that helpful? Could it have been designed better?
But I think I mentioned that before. For me, is it okay if I go, Rita?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thanks. I find it extremely valuable. Like I said, that's how I was able to be like, oh man, I did not really read chapter 4 actually. I didn't integrate anything, and it helped me to give. I like bullets, like points, like boom, boom. It's anchoring. Would you mind, Edwin, though, to clarify what you mean by as like having the summary as an activity? I'm not sure I understand what you mean.
Okay, so the way I've been kind of conceptualizing the training is that each component is sort of like an activity of its own and kind of deserves its own sort of a web page and a description. So the empathy circle is an activity. So it's just how I've been trying to conceptualize. It's an activity. Within that activity of the empathy circle are component activities. The little bit of mindfulness at the beginning is a little activity. The on-arrival question is an activity. The book summary is an activity.
The book summary in itself is an activity.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you meant that that in the summary that you're giving, you are giving like if you clarify what's like the key points in chapter 3, I thought you meant that the key points would be an activity we can use.
Oh, no, that's not quite what I meant. No, it's just how I've been recently conceptualizing the training. It's all these different components, and each component we can take as a separate entity and then explore. So even the chapter summary is sort of like a separate component, and we can refine and design it to better address everyone's needs and make it more effective.
Got it.
So I was hearing that you're finding it valuable. It was a good reminder, and there was another thing.
It was anchoring. It really
anchoring.
anchored my learning.
It was anchoring. Oh, and
Also
you like
because
bullet points.
I'm a bit ahead, so I've been reading those a little bit before, and I actually thought today we were going to do chapter 1 and 2 for some reason. So it helps to kind of like go back here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So
Rita, any feedback?
Yeah, I was looking at the. Yeah, I like to have it summarized, even though the book is so short. It's nice to have it even more summarized. And when you talk about each part of the book being an activity in itself, I was picturing in my mind, okay, it's a little bit like a PowerPoint presentation, and we sit on sentences or on 3 bullets or something like that. So I was looking at the communication model, the 4 boxes. For some reason, I find it more powerful than it looks at first, the 4 boxes. I kind of like them. And I see that the one you put on the summary from Thomas Gordon, I assume is using using that one, and yet the one you are that you have there is more complete. You have more the arrows are better explained, and instead of A, B, C, A, B, A, B. Yeah, I find it really clear. I really like it.
Okay.
I connect better with it.
Oh, so the new model. I was trying to improve on the model so we can kind of build and improve on that.
So that is you input.
Yeah, I went and got some pictures. Yeah, I transferred just the boxes into it, face and stuff like that. So kind of.
So that's not the Thomas Gordon original thing. The Thomas Gordon is the one that we have in the book, and that right. Is you new and improved.
Right. Yeah, I like the model itself. I think it's something we can build on. And even that those faces could become more expressive, right? Kind of the reading of the faces we can. So I just see a lot of potential for how we can use that model, in future lessons.
Training, yeah. No, I really like what it's become.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, then, so going forward for the next meeting, is there a question? Like, do we want to pose a question for the next meeting, like a general question? Any votes on? We want to come up with some kind of maybe during the week we could come up with like a question for the chapters and then a question for the on arrival question.
Say that again, I was not listening.
For our on arrival question, we need an on arrival question for next week.
Yeah, one thing that comes to my mind is what does, just to help us focus on the moment with empathy, what does empathy look like, feels like?
That's a good one. Yeah.
Looks like, feels like, and what else? Tastes like for you in this moment, just today, not last week, not next week, just at this moment.
Mm-hmm. I have right now. Okay, I was another question I had was what what have you practiced so far? Like asking the person what have they implemented or what have they tried in the meantime?
What exercise or what practice?
Yeah, what practice? What have you? What exists?
Like
have you
what
had,
empathy building practice have you?
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. Have you maybe just tried to intentionally listening at someone? Have you tried something so far? Like it's going back to my idea of like, don't leave it dusty on the shelf, what you're learning.
Oh,
Use it.
Use it. So in the last week or since this began?
Yeah, in the last week.
This last.
And one question. So next time, I believe it's chapter 5 and 6, right?
What is 5? Is that the?
It's the roadblocks.
Oh, the blocks is a whole chapter. It's big. Okay. So I was thinking we just do one, just 5. So next time is 5.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was thinking a question as well for this chapter. Then, like, what I don't know, like. What is your favorite roadblock?
What? Your favorite?
I like it.
Road.
I know mine is advising. Ooh, let me give you advice. I'm so smart. I'm going to give advice.
Okay, so we got 2 questions. What is your favorite roadblock? And maybe a choice of questions. What does empathy look like, feel like, taste like right now? Or what empathy building practice have you tried so far last week? Unless you want to converge on one of those, you kind of have a choice.
You asking us to choose between?
You want to choose between the 2, or that when next week we have a choice of answering either of those? Or
that's a good way.
Having a choice, yeah.
We choose question.
We choose which one we want to answer.
Which one answer? Okay.
Yeah.
That's good.
All right. Well, that's good. So we kind of have that set. So at the next meeting, I had wanted to try a couple other activities. One of the activities was felt your feeling, and then turning the feeling into a movement, and then we do mirrored movement, and that. I would introduce that activity, we would do it and then get feedback, and we would record it, and then I'll take that and actually put that onto the web page. I'll cut out that little video.
Oh gosh. Okay.
So I mean, I'll handle the technical part, but so you can think about, over the next week or the next weeks, what activity would you like to introduce and present? That you would introduce it, short, 10, 15-minute activity that is empathy building, and that you would present, and that we would kind of create. You could write up an activity, write it up as an activity. We present it, and then we create like a web page, for that activity. So, does that work?
Okay.
Does that sound good?
Okay, so we are thinking of, we just make up an activity we're thinking could be fun to see, and we can practice in the group to see if that works.
Exactly. And we'll kind of, the next week will be this mirrored activity will be the one. And then whatever you write up, it'll come, we'll have to just prioritize them. Everybody gets a chance to present theirs at a future meeting.
Okay, I'm just want to say that I'm terrible at designing activities on my own. For me, it's a collaborative thing. I'm terrible at just making stuff up alone.
Okay.
So I'll try, but I would rather either maybe choosing someone and talk outside of the meeting to come up with something to collaborate. Otherwise, I'm not sure.
Okay, well, that could be the activity, is let's design an activity together. I'm always into these meta things, right? So you would lead a discussion of let's come up with an activity and kind of help us to design an activity.
I love it. All right.
Okay. Okay. So you have to just write up that as the co-designing an activity.
Yeah. Okay.
More of these meta concepts. So, okay, then is that, I feel complete. So just in closing, just how's everybody, just maybe a few words on how you're feeling. I feel excited. I feel a little bit of loss, like we missed Pauline and Bunny dropped out. So it's nice to, have the full group. So I'm kind of missing everyone else, but I feel excited. I really enjoying, Jessica, your laugh and your enthusiasm. So I'm really enjoying that.
You want to go, Rita?
Yeah, I'm satisfied and looking forward to next week.
Yeah, I'm really pleased as well. I'm feeling sad for Pauline and Bunny who dropped as well. And yeah, I said I was feeling playful at the beginning, and I played, and so I'm feeling really excited. And I'm gonna go in the sun and feeling the sun. Yeah, I'm feeling grounded and excited for next week.